Hi friends, wholeness and balance vibrations. It's Mystic Mommy, aka the Ebony Hempress. You already know. Period. Today we're talking about CHS. Do we know what CHS stands for? It's Cannabinoid Hyperemesis Syndrome. What's that? It's basically a type of cyclical vomiting syndrome that is specifically caused by overexposure to cannabis. Specifically, THC is what everyone's basically the consensus theory right now, based off of the research that we have thus far. CHS is still a very mysterious, type of syndrome to come down with. And so basically, we don't know everything about it yet. There's a lot of research that needs to be done still, but I'm here to come today and tell you what we do know thus far. So, I just have some notes here about CHS. I've been listening to tons of podcasts with doctors and cannabis nurses, cannabis enthusiasts and experts in the industry. And I've also been, reading some articles about CHS from professionals that I follow personally on LinkedIn. I am very tapped in with a lot of people, that are into cannabis, obviously, because I work in cannabis too, right? So I've been doing my own research about CHS, trying to kind of compile it and then deduce it down for you here today. So this is what CHS is in a nutshell. So what does CHS look like, right? Like I said, it's a cyclical vomiting syndrome. So it's characterized by excessive and chronic vomiting, nausea, abdominal pain. And this, like I said, it's chronic, so it can last for weeks, and then subside and then come back and be, happen for a prolonged period of time. So it's very cyclical and it's reoccurring and it's chronic. So it comes in phases as well. So I meant to say that. So it actually comes in phases. It's a 3-phase syndrome. I want to call it a disorder, but I don't want to mislabel it. But some scientists, some cannabis doctors believe that there may be a genetic predisposition that some people may have to CHS. It's very possible. And also that it is due to a overexposure to THC in your body, in your endocannabinoid system specifically. And we'll get into that later. But let me go over the 3 phases with you. There is the prodromal phase, the hyperemetic phase, and the recovery phase. The prodromal phase is kind of like the pre to the actual vomiting. So it's like you're feeling nauseous in the morning, you're thinking you might want to throw up, you have a fear of throwing up at this point, but you haven't started vomiting yet. You're having abdominal pain, possibly. You're not feeling well. So that's the first stage. The second stage, the hyperemetic stage, is when people become hyperemetic. So they are excessively vomiting to the point where they can't keep food down. They're becoming dehydrated. and, very weak. It's starting to put stress on the body and all the other, systems in your body. So completely out of whack endocannabinoid system at that point. And so what characterizes CHS and makes it very unique is that a lot of people who come down with CHS have a tendency to want to be in a hot bath or a hot shower constantly to relieve their symptoms, to relieve their pain, to relieve their nausea. And normal medication that would be prescribed for a vomiting disorder, or something to stop the vomiting, doesn't actually work for CHS. And so they have to use a different type of pharmaceutical. I believe it's called Haldol, but don't quote me on that. And so that's the second phase. Then the third phase is the recovery phase. That is at the point where the patient stops taking cannabis altogether, completely abstains, and gives the body time to come back to a homeostatic state, and the symptoms start to subside and cease. So the recovery time varies upon, the severity of the case of CHS. Could take a matter of days before you start feeling better. It could take a matter of weeks, or I've heard that it's even taken years for people to fully recover. So it's very serious, and it can be very dangerous if it's gone for too long without being treated, without abstinence, because you become very dehydrated, and it could lead to other organs in your body not functioning, like your kidneys. So very important to be mindful about how we consume. Okay, and we're back about the CHS crash course part 2. I had to just bookmark where we were at last night because I crashed out, and now we're here. So thank you so much for still being here and listening and learning. So I would love to just talk more about what CHS is on a molecular level. So basically it has to do with our endocannabinoid system, particularly our receptors. So the receptors in question right now is going to be CB1 and our TRPV1 receptors. CB1 receptors are found all over the body, including in your brain and in your gut. And TRPV1 is also going to be a receptor found in the gut. So these receptors, especially the ones found in our gut, are going to be great for the motility of your gastro system, and just helping relieve nausea and getting things moving as they should be down there, right? So essentially, like I said before, CHS is caused by an overexposure to cannabis. And it's actually the THC is what they're zeroing in on. So it seems that when the CB1 receptors and the TRPV1 receptors are overstimulated and overexposed to THC, it actually desensitizes them to a certain degree. So that is why you are no longer experiencing relief of your nausea and things like that when you smoke or when you consume, and it's actually now causing the opposite effect. So a lot of things to do with cannabis and a lot of other herbs too that we use medicinally are biphasic, meaning that depending on the dosage and depending on the circumstances, this particular plant can cause this effect or it can relieve that effect. So opposite sides of the spectrum, right? So essentially, a lot of people take cannabis to relieve their nausea and to boost their appetite. But, in cases like CHS, where you are over consuming, it can cause nausea or it can, suppress your appetite or make you not hungry because you're so sick, right? So that is basically what's happening on a molecular level. It all has to do with your receptors. So those receptors in your endocannabinoid system are being just overly stimulated. Too much THC. And that causes an imbalance in the endocannabinoid system and in your body, of course. So that is what causes these issues. And, it's really important to consume consciously, consume full spectrum products, consume live resin products, whole plant products, so that you're getting a wide range of cannabinoids and terpenes, rather than zeroing in on that concentrated THC alone, right? So not necessarily looking for distillate, we're not necessarily looking for the highest THC flower at the dispo. We want to honor the plant as a whole. We want to respect and value all of its constituents because it actually works the best that way. So that's good to know. I did want to talk a little bit about some conspiracies regarding CHS, so let's move on to that. So there is some conspiracies about CHS. A lot of people find CHS to be a very touchy subject. One, because they don't want to over-exacerbate the stigma against cannabis. And a lot of people are very weary about, patients who come out and say that they came down with CHS because, they don't want to scare society away from cannabis use, right? We all love this plant so much. We know that it has medicinal benefit. But just like everything that we use as a drug or as a medicine, there are possible side effects if you're not using the plant correctly, right? Too much of anything is not good for you. And we are not trying to advocate for, reckless consumption of cannabis. We're trying to advocate for conscious, safe, and informed cannabis use. So, with that being said, that is one of the conspiracies about CHS. A lot of people are just disregarding and, even just like completely disowning people who come out and talk about CHS, unfortunately. I know Alice Moon, she is a cannabis publicist. She actually has CHS. She's been on platforms talking about it, and she's received a lot of negative feedback, a lot of nasty feedback from people in the community. So it's a very touchy subject. Also, a lot of people are not sure and not agreeing on the cause of CHS. So not only are people thinking that CHS is completely make-believe, but there's also people who believe that CHS is caused by something other than the THC. You'll hear a lot of people saying that CHS is caused by moldy weed. You'll hear a lot that CHS is actually caused by pesticide poisoning. The only thing is with those particular, statements is that, one, we're seeing people come down with CHS from all directions in terms of flower users, concentrate users, vape users, newbies, seasoned consumers, chronic users. And so with that being said, it's a wide range of products that are being consumed. So it's not just inorganic flower that is happening. It's not just street weed that's causing this. It's not just the synthetic cannabinoid products. It's all over. So we want to educate and let people know the theories, the consensus right now, but there is a lot of research that still needs to be done, and there is a lot of people out there right now, there are a lot of people out there right now that do not agree about what the actual cause is and what the mechanism is behind it. So just keep that in mind. And oh yes, one last thing I did want to let everyone know about, there is a theory that certain people are actually predisposed to coming down with CHS, and those people would actually be people with certain genetic markers that makes them more susceptible to cyclical vomiting. So there's more research that needs to be done about that, but essentially what they're saying is, some people might be genetically predisposed to catching CHS if they are not using cannabis correctly, and that's the key there. So you don't have to worry about this if you are a well-rounded cannabis consumer. You're enjoying all of the cannabinoids and all of the terps and things, and you're not a THC fiend. As long as you're not like seeking only THC, highest THC all the time, every day, chronically, you shouldn't have to worry about this. However, what I would say is, just make sure you're doing everything in moderation, right? So I hope that this was valuable to you. I've had to redo this recording so many times, so I hope I didn't forget anything, but I really appreciate everyone's time today, and thank you so much for listening to the crash course on CHS by the Ebony Hempress. That's me. See you guys next time.